Hello, I'm Sierra Scott. Welcome to It's All Good. This is a show dedicated to people, places, companies, and organizations that are working hard to make the world a better place to live. One of the most well-known pop singers from the late 60s and early 70s lives right here in Kansas, but very few people even know he's here. That's partly because he's changed the type of music he sings, and also because he prefers to keep a low profile. But the songs he's known for still live on in the hearts of millions of people. Trust me, you'll definitely recognize them.
Here we go.
We're going to go left.
When I started hitting those high notes, I couldn't believe it. I thought, this isn't me, but you keep stretching your abilities, and I didn't realize I could do that.
The man who sang this version of The Lion Sleeps Tonight, which we all know and love, lives in Derby, Kansas.
People, when I recorded this song, started giving me gifts of lions, stuffed lions, lions that make noise and push things, and I even got a ring here with a lion on it that a friend gave me, made of pewter, and our whole house is full of lions.
Frankie Valens was born Frankie Piper in Kansas City. As a child, he had no ambitions of ever becoming a performer. In fact, it wasn't even something he ever considered. He actually intended to become an accountant when he left home to go to college in New York City. We've all heard stories of how stars were discovered, but Frankie's may be the most unusual of all. Frankie was living in New Jersey at the time.
I took a part-time job at a local department store in their sporting goods department. And while I was working there, there was a gentleman that came in, and he heard me humming to some of the music, because all stores usually have a piped-in music.
That man was a manager of a band called Eminent Domain, a band that just happened to be looking for a lead singer at the time. After he was introduced to the band members, the manager handed Frankie a record and told him to go home and learn it.
He said, come back next Saturday when they are rehearsing and audition. Okay, so I looked at the song. It said Unchained Melody. I thought, what does this mean, So I took it home and I listened to it, and I thought, oh, I don't know if I can do this. But I said, I'm going to learn this, and I want to learn this song good, from the heart.
And sing from the heart he did.
And I sung that, and those guys got tears in their eyes. They said, Frankie, you're our new lead singer.
And with that, a star was born. Their first gig was just 2 weeks later. And the accolades just poured in.
By the way, when we did Battle of Bands, we always came in first.
They played together for a year or so. Then Frankie wanted to move on.
I had no idea where this would go. And not until I left that first band and joined another group called Fragile Glass that I realized that there was more to this than just singing in nightclubs.
Maybe there was more than just singing in nightclubs in his sights, but it just so happened that in one of those nightclubs, someone was watching who would change his life.
And an agent from a record company was sitting there listening, and he was excited about what he heard. And after usually agents, they only stay through one set, and if they like you, they'll stay another set. But if they don't like you, they'll move on. And he stayed the whole night. And then he offered a recording contract.
But the contract was for Frankie alone, so once again he had to say goodbye to his band. And this time, he had to say goodbye to his given name, too.
But he saw that I did a tribute to Frankie Valens, and I sang like Frankie Valli. He said, well, you're called Frankie, and you do Frankie Valens tunes. Let's just call you Frankie Valens. And that's how that came about. Sure enough, as soon as they changed my name to Frankie Valens, all the girls were screaming and running after me, and it was then that the agent said, we have to get you bodyguards. This magic
Of all the covers they recorded, Frankie considers this one to be his signature song, a song originally recorded by the Drifters.
Because my songs were positive, very innocent songs.
Frankie made a career out of re-recording songs and adding his own flair to make them hits. Although his star was rising, Frankie says there were a lot of downsides to being a pop singer. The long hours on the road began to take a toll.
When you're traveling, you're in the back of a van sleeping, and you wake up somewhere, and I'm thinking, where are we? Well, you're in Canada now. Well, okay. Or you wake up somewhere and you say, you know, your entourage is setting everything up for you. The lighting, the sound. All you come and do is a sound check and you're ready to go. So you kind of lose focus on where you're at and who you really are.
2, 3, 4, tell the people what she wore.
I was only a pop singer from about 68 to 72. And I enjoyed it. I didn't like the idea that I had to have a bodyguard everywhere I went. You couldn't go out on your own anywhere. Then I became big-headed. I'm thinking, I'm this important. I have a bodyguard. I have girls chasing me. So you get this big head about you. And I became very stuck up. I mean, I had an attitude that just wouldn't stop.
At the top of his game, Frankie did something people just couldn't imagine. Coming up after the break, we'll tell you how it forever changed his life. Before the break, Frankie told us that his fame had gone to his head and he was becoming a person he just didn't like. In early 1971, Frankie began to feel an uneasiness, as though this just wasn't where he was supposed to be.
And I kind of lost track of, why am I doing this? Is it all just for me? What is this all about? I need something more than this. I can't just be here for me. What can I do with my life?
Things came to a head while preparing for their debut concert at the Sahara in Las Vegas. After rehearsing all day without food, someone threw him an apple to eat. It was then he decided to change directions.
I broke away from that band. I just quit cold turkey. But I cried myself to sleep for 3 weeks, wondering, what am I going to do with my life? And then I started going to a church, and that's when it changed my life around. And I know that it was more than me. There was something more important than me. And so I gave my heart to him, and things changed around for me totally and completely. And I've so enjoyed the pop industry, but I also now enjoy the gospel sides.
After leaving his pop singer life behind, Frankie began going by his old name again and stopped talking about his past. In fact, his wife knew him 2 years before he told her about his former life.
Usually I just sat in the choir. I didn't want to be showcased. Because of my band, and I didn't want people to know who I was, I wanted them to know me as me.
Frankie and his wife Phyllis met at church when she came in as the new choir director.
And for me, it was love at first sight. She wanted nothing to do with me.
Phyllis is a concert pianist who can also write music, but Frankie saw even more in her.
But I asked her one time to sing with me, and we harmonized. It was beautiful.
Their voices really do blend well together. When Frankie and Phyllis got married, she still had no idea of her husband's famous past. As I said earlier, he was back to using his real name, Frankie Piper, so Phyllis became Phyllis Piper. A few years into their relationship, Phyllis heard a record playing.
I said, well, that sounds like you on the record. And he said, it is me. And I said, but it says Frankie Valens. And he said, let me tell you a story. I truly did not know who he was. I grew up in a home that was a very religious home, and a very strictly religious home. And that kind of music was sinful. So I had no background for anything like this at all.
Both Frankie and Phyllis are preacher's kids. While Frankie says his home was a little less strict, his father still didn't approve.
He never came to my concerts. Never.
Never saw you sing?
Mm-mm.
Wow. That's amazing.
When they first got married, Phyllis says going out on the road was the last thing on her mind.
Absolutely not, and to the contrary. Because I had said I don't like to travel, and I didn't. So he came up with this wonderful idea one day that he'd like to do some touring, go on the road, and I said, But he'd done that and he liked it. And so as I've said, God did a 180 on me.
These days, Frankie is singing a different tune, and that's just fine by him. Now these two have a career that utilizes their talents in a positive way. Frankie and Phyllis now tour the country performing songs like this one that Phyllis wrote at churches along the way.
You are wonderful, you are Counselor, you're the everlasting Father. Praise your name, Lord Jesus, praise your name. I'm surprised at my age that I can still hit some of those high notes.
I am too, because that is
I love music, I always loved to dance, I was just raised with music all around me.
Frankie and Phyllis could live anywhere in the world, but says Kansas was where they were led to be.
We came to town in concert, and one of the churches asked if we wanted to stay to be their music pastors. So we actually came off the road for about a year and became their music pastors.
They worked at that church for about a year before feeling the pull to go out on the road. While Frankie says he's not proud of everything in his past, there's one record he's extremely proud of, and it's not one he sang on either.
And my testimony is I've never smoked in my entire life. I didn't do drugs either.
How did you not fall into that?
That was not easy. I remember sitting in the back of a car with all of the band members there, and they started somewhere in the front seat, and they started this little rolled up thing, and they started passing it to everybody else, and all of a sudden they passed it to me, and my lead guitarist is sitting here next to me and said, "Oh, Frankie, nobody's going to know the difference." I said, "I will." And he said, he almost was angry because I wouldn't do it, because I didn't. If I wasn't the lead singer making all the money for the band, they probably would have kicked me out.
But that experience, too, has become a beautiful message for him.
It's a positive statement to tell people that you can still be out there in the world and still not be a part of it. And we make choices every day of our life. We sometimes make good choices, we make bad choices.
Looking back at the person that you were when you were a pop star, what would you say to that person now, knowing what you know now?
Wake up and smell the roses. Become a real person. Use your talent for God's glory, not yours. Don't be focused inward, be focused out. And that's what I became. I just wish I had known it earlier.
Just a plain and simple travel where
With the proliferation of music on the internet, a whole new generation is now listening to his songs.
We don't know how many lives we're going to touch at any given point. So stay positive, sing positive music that gives a good message to people, and that's what we mainly are about.
Frankie Valens' rendition of The Lion Sleeps Tonight is also listed on the top 200 most requested songs. Frankie's book, Chasing An Illusive Dream, will be available soon. If you'd like them to come and perform at your church, go to this website for more information. Coming up after the break, we'll meet a man who's